Kyle Tierman here. I'm in Cape Town.
I was the only journalist in northern Nigeria.
Not an adventure until you get lost in Tijuana.
If you get caught inside by a giant wave, you feel really alone.
I love the adventure of waking up and not knowing what will happen and that being my job.
Bianca, it's so good to see you. I'm happy we can make this happen. I'm surprised and ashamed that we haven't done it yet. So this feels like a podcast long overdue.
Totally. I'm a long-time listener and first time guest.
Love that. So you're turning your computer around right there, and I saw a voluminous whiteboard. You can't see it in the background anymore. Now there's a big wave behind you, but what is on that freaking whiteboard? That thing looks. Your task list looks full.
Well, it's a task list and time blocking, and also it was also an inspirational piece of feedback that somebody gave me on my new video series that I made called the 5 to 100. So
Okay.
yeah.
So it's serving multiple purposes.
Yeah.
People can't see it in my background, but I also am a whiteboard fan because I feel that if you have more shit going on in your life than a whiteboard can hold, you have too much shit going on. It's like a whiteboard should hold a human life. And anything more than that, it's like, all right, we got to cut back now. Digital though, you can just keep loading up, and then you're not actually being effective at getting any one thing done.
That's a very good point. I remember the first time I was inspired by somebody's whiteboard. I went up to Tahoe snowboarding for the weekend, crashed at a friend's house on the couch, and her housemate was going through Air Force Academy, and he had this immaculate whiteboard, and I was like, that's it. I went home that weekend, got a whiteboard, and just put it in my room, and yeah, I live by my whiteboard.
Oh, it's an incredible de-stressor for me. It just to be able to see all the projects that I have at any one point in my life, not on a computer. I'm pretty militantly de-digitizing my life. Whew, that's a tongue twister. Because I think that so much of whether you want to progress in an athletic pursuit or you want to progress in an intellectual pursuit or career, the key is doing one thing at a time for a long stretch at a time. The difference between doing a 15-minute workout and a 1 hour workout isn't 3 times as good. It's 20 times as good. Just the ability to time block that kind of stuff. So how do you use time blocking?
I'm trying to more and more, but I like to keep things flexible because I live here at Ocean Beach where, we have waves every day, but there's always, if you want to get the best waves of the day, there's usually a window, and that window changes every single day. So I try to time block. I try to anticipate when the window will be. Sometimes I just go when I can, like today, but I'm trying to get more efficient, to become more efficient with my time, and it's working.
How are the waves at Ocean Beach today?
They were wet, and it was a little bit all over the place, probably chest to shoulder high. It was overcast, but the sun just came out. So I would say probably right now is the better window, but I have the pleasure of being here with you.
And I have the pleasure of being here with you. I'm embarrassed to ask this, but where did you grow up?
I grew up in Dana Point. Yeah, I grew up in Dana
Okay.
Point. I started surfing at Doheny Beach, and my dad moved to San Francisco when I was 7, but I grew up in Dana Point with my mom, and I started surfing when I was 7.
Okay. Just surfing a little beach break when you were a little kid. And were you doing contests as a kid? Was it a dream early on to be a pro surfer? What was young childhood for Bianca like?
Yeah, I was going to the beach every day with my mom and my sister. Well, my dad's a chef, and he was opening up a new restaurant, and I had a boogie board, and I kept standing up on it. And so my mom was like, "Hey, do you want to try a hardboard?" And I had a lot of energy, a lot of fire in my personality, and so she was always encouraging me to stay in the ocean as long as possible. and even bribing me sometimes with like 2 scoops of ice cream if I stayed in, another hour. And so yeah, I was like, yeah, I don't want to get a hard board. And so I had a $75 budget, and we went around to every surf shop, which at the time there were three, and nothing was $75 except for one board that was covered in skull and crossbones, like skull and crossbones deck pads, skull and crossbones everywhere. And I was like, this is scary. This is a scary board. I am scared of this board. And the guys at the shop were like, no, no, don't worry. Come back tomorrow. And it'll be a different board. And so we went back the next day, and they had like taken the deck pad off and covered it all up. They painted it white. And then she took me down to Doheny Beach. I got the board at Killer Dana Surf Shop. She took me down to Doheny Beach, and she just put her chair at the water's edge and said, "Don't make me come and rescue you."
Hmm.
And
Okay.
that was it.
Had
That
you
was it.
had you had swim lessons before?
Yeah, I was a good swimmer already, and then also once she saw, like, how much I loved it, she signed me up for water polo, so I wouldn't actually play the water polo, I would just do the training at the public pool. So she was always trying to make sure that I was, like, safe and prepared and strong.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And early on, was surfing a social pursuit, or was it more of like a personal pursuit? Like I like asking surfers this question because I feel like we all come to it from different angles. And for me, like I was a skateboarder. And like we had my older brother had built a half pipe in our backyard. So I was like, I had no interest in surfing, no interest in the ocean really. I was like all in on skating. And then one day, a guy named Kyle Boothman came over to start skateboarding. And I was like, 9 years old. We became fast friends. And like pretty quickly I learned like, oh shit, he surfs. I need to learn how to surf too. But it was not because of any, like, personal interest in the ocean, it was because I wanted to be, like, part of the crew. It was like a social pursuit for me. Were you how was it for you? Was it just, were you out there alone? Did you have friends doing it? Like, or in those early days, what brought you to it?
Yeah, so I mean, I just loved the feeling. I remember my very first wave where I stood up, I caught a whitewater, I stood up and it reformed, and I went left and right and left again, and I just loved that feeling and that sensation of flowing and carving through the water, and I was like, this is the best feeling in the world. And then that next week, my mom signed me up for a water camp down in San Diego where you'd surf half of the day and then do another water sport the second half of the day. And that was down at my grandma's. And so I got a poster. I went and got to go to the surf shop and like get a sticker and a poster. And I got a poster of Kelly Slater. And it was him standing up in a really big backdoor barrel. And it was like 1992 Kelly Slater, world champion. It was his first year he won the world championship. He was 21. And I put that poster on my wall, and I would just look, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be the best surfer in the world. And then I also skateboarded and the same loved board sports, and I loved all sports, but my favorite was surfing from day one.
Yeah, it's I remember being like 10 and I had a poster on my wall that said to Kyle from Peter Mel, go big. And I had that fucking poster on my wall from like 9 years old to like 18. And he was like, I don't know. And it was like the Men Who Ride Mountains 1999 Mavs contest. And it's amazing to me how much like a visual poster on your wall can impact a childhood. Like I think
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
like it won't let you leave, right? Because you constantly think about it. And then, did you do the contest circuit growing up?
Yeah, and then I started, I didn't have nobody in my family surfed, and as a girl, and at the time, really, there weren't many kids who surfed either. There was like, I had one friend, Ryan Franz, who was my friend in second grade, and he's a great surfer today. And his family was in the Doheny Longboard Surfing Association Club. And so my mom also was like, how can I build community for my kid around something she really loves, obviously. And so these longboard clubs are up and down the coast, and they meet up once a month and have a meeting, and they clean up trash off the beach, and it's like good vibes. And then you have your contests with just the club, and then you have contests with against the other clubs up and down the coast. So it's a fun way to get to know other surfers. And I don't know if you ever participated, but I just found out like that JoJo Roper was in Wind and Sea, and so we were actually like at the same contests all the time, and
That's funny.
just you know,
Yeah,
longboarding,
totally.
good
No, no,
family vibes.
yeah, that's great. No, I was an NSSA kid. I would always go down to Central California with Nat Young and Rosie, and we would do the NSSA contests. It sounds like your mom was a big supporter for you from an early age.
Yeah, she's awesome. So she exactly just she would wake me up during high school. She would wake me up at 5:30 and just be like, "Hey, if you want to go surfing, you got to get up now." And then we'd go down to the beach, and it was before surf team, and she'd walk the dog while I'd go surfing for 45 minutes or an hour, and then I'd go to school, and then I'd finish school, and then I'd go to tennis team, and then I'd come home and do my homework.
Okay. And then you just stuck with it. There was no hiatus ever in your surfing life. From 7 on, you got the bug, and it's been like 5 days a week. It seems like for until now.
Sort of. Yeah, I mean, sort of like I didn't really start surfing year round until I was 13 just because wetsuits were challenging and I was doing other sports in school. But I was always super competitive and I was always, ending up at the top of the podium. And at the time, there were no girls' divisions. There were just me and the boys, or sometimes I'd compete with the open women. And so I loved it and I thought I was the best. And I was like, I just want to be a pro surfer. And everybody told me that that was stupid and not a good career. And I should try to be a pro tennis player or a lawyer or a doctor. And I was like, yeah, you're stupid, whatever.
Right, right,
And,
right.
But it turns out they were all right. It's not something you do to make money.
Yeah. Um, well, yeah, it's kind of its own. Surfing is an interesting one. I feel like I have this like metaphor for surfing that I think of often, which is like it's this huge pot of stew, and at any point, like we're all in this stew, and like we're all putting our tiny little ingredients into this big thing that like no one owns, no one knows exactly what surfing is. There's not a singular surf culture, but like there's so much character in it that we each add our little spice, and like whatever that is, it makes the whole thing more interesting. And I do think that you're one of those people that has had a very distinct point of view on surfing from a young age, and a very distinct energy that you've brought to it. And it's like, oh, that's Bianca's spice. Like, there's no one quite like you. There's no quite like anyone who surfs like you or is like you. And like, I think that that's such a beautiful thing about the sport is it leaves a lot of room for personality where other sports are way more uniform.
Right. Yeah, I like that. I like that analogy. Yeah, the spice. Yeah. So as far as spiciness goes, I did stop surfing for when I was 16. I totally had competitive burnout and I kind of realized then that like if you were a girl in surfing, you did not have the same opportunity as boys. And that, I was sponsored up and the boys on my team and then the girls who had the model type images, they when I found out they were getting better deals than me, even though I was always at the top of the podium, I just got pissed and burnt out and I was like, screw this and then I quit and then and that I was primarily longboarding though. And I was longboarding in pro contests and then a kid at my high school, I still did the surf PE, which was like before school once a week. And this kid was like, you should try shortboarding. And he's like, here's this shortboard. And so then I was like, yeah, like, I'm terrible at this. This is fun. I want to keep trying this and get good at this now. And then I kind of really fell back in love with it once I started going to UCSB.
Okay, cool, cool.
hmm
And what did you study at UCSB?
I studied global studies with a minor in sports management. So
Okay,
Global Studies
okay.
is a program that started at UCSB. It's all about globalization and the global economy, and you can focus on a few different pathways. And I focused on socioeconomics in Europe, and you take a language, and the classes are very interesting and very relevant to today's society. So I feel pretty lucky that even though it was just a bachelor's degree and then sports management was a minor, I would have majored in that too. But yeah.
Did you did you find it easy to be in your own skin growing up? And the reason I ask is I feel like not just female big wave surfers, but I think a lot of big wave surfers generally have a kind of intensity that's pretty hard to manage through adolescence. Like society doesn't necessarily have room for it. Like most big wave surfers I know are just like they're more intense people, whether or not they like let it show on the outside or not. Like there is a weird like look that most of them have that's like fucking cool, and it's like why it's my favorite kind of surfing is just because it's like it's the most badass. But to be a female and to also have that like, and you seem very like you're proud of your intensity, like seems like it was there from the beginning and it's there now, and it's like it's fucking awesome. It's Bianca, and you very clearly grown into that self that is you. But was it always easy to be yourself as a kid, or what did it feel like to be you growing up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm definitely a big feeler and a deep feeler, and I have really, really strong feelings and emotions. And whether it's about gender equality or equality as a broad topic or the environment, those are always really, really important topics. And as a teenager, especially, I had a really hard time managing my emotions around those. And surfing was a very healthy outlet to, and that's why I'm lucky like that. I had such a cool mom to encourage me to just stay in the water. Um, and I think I didn't get into big waves until I was going to UC Santa Barbara, and I think that has actually been, like, a really healthy catalyst um, to, like, channel that fire. And, as you age and you do learn how to and you go to therapy and, I've gone to therapy since I was in, like, 3rd grade and had all different kinds of therapists and that's psychotherapy and all kinds of therapy. And, so I've got a lot of tools and I still have big feelings, and, yeah, it's just like I love those moments when we get to be out in the big waves and a lot of times together with you, and it's just like, yeah, this is living, you know?
Fuck yeah. No, fuck yeah. You've seen the best wave of my life, I think, till
Yeah,
still to this day
I
when
think I
I
have
had
it
my
on
airdrop.
GoPro.
You
Yeah,
you have it
I
yeah, you got the
I
footage.
do. I have it on GoPro, and I was filming from the channel at Mavericks, and it was, like, south wind, foggy morning, early morning, and it got windy right after that, and I had a GoPro, and I was just pointing it towards the wave, and I was like, "Is that Kyle? Kyle?" And I came across that clip the other day, and it's awesome, so I'll send it to you.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah.
When did you first surf Mavericks?
I first surfed Mavericks in 2012 with Savannah Shaughnessy and Pat Shaughnessy, and I had been wanting to surf it. I knew Savannah from going down and surfing in Puerto, and she was like, "You should surf Mavericks and come with me." And I was like, kind of sizing myself up against her at Puerto, and I was like, "Okay, if she can do it, I can do it." And I ordered a board from a local shaper, and he made me promise him that I wouldn't die. Uh, and so I got the board, and then I knew, I wanted to go out with buddies because that's a smart way to do it. And the day finally came, and we paddled out, and they were filming the Jay Moriarty movie, and it was insane. And so that was before drones, and there were these helicopters circling around the lineup. I mean, these were the biggest, craziest waves I'd ever seen in person. And then on top of that, there were these helicopters circling around the lineup like bees and with hanging 300-pound cameras. It was just absolutely nuts. And I was just in awe, jaw dropped to the floor, and I didn't think I'd catch a wave that day. I was really more just observing. But then a wide one came. I was sitting in a pretty cautious spot, and a wide one came that I thought, I think I can catch this. And so I paddled into it and I caught it, and I party waved with Frank the longboarder. And that was like the biggest wave of my life to that moment. And I was like, this is awesome, And that was kind of the day I decided that I wanted to um, take things to the next level and really focus on Mavericks.
Sure, sure. So at the time, where were you living?
I was living in Mill Valley in Marin.
Okay, okay. And
Yeah.
what brought you up to Northern California initially?
Yeah, so I mean, after I graduated from UC Santa Barbara, I knew I already got a taste for some bigger waves there. I wasn't like Mavericks big yet,
Yeah, you're surfing Ocean
but
Beach.
yeah, and I was going down, I was working a lot in Sayulita at this women's surf and yoga retreat. And so we do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and the 2 weeks off, I would catch the bus down to Pascuales, and I'd camp out there and I'd surf there. And I get my butt kicked and, like, be getting pitched over the falls, didn't have the right gear, didn't have the right training behind me, but I loved it, and then I sprained my wrist really bad. I came home for a couple weeks, and I just had this conversation with my dad, and he's a chef, and he has a restaurant, and he was like, when are you gonna quit surfing and get a real job?" And, he convinced me on this banquet manager role that's the person who was running the banquets had just quit. And he was like, "You'll be able to work like 3 days a week selling banquets and you'll make 60, 70,000 bucks a year and you'll be able to surf. And I think you should do that." And so I was like, "Okay." And I did it. And then I ended up working with him for like 12 years and we opened a new restaurant together. And I started studying wine. And so I've pretty much always had a career to support my surfing.
That's great. No, that's
But
great.
yeah, that was what I kinda just was gravitated after college towards the Bay Area because I love the innovative culture here. I like the waves for me are the best in California. Um, and I liked partying in the city,
I
you
fucking
know? Yeah.
love San Francisco surf culture. I like it's one of my favorites in the world. I feel like the locals in Santa Cruz, like Matt and Andy and all those guys are like they're hardcore, but they're also like cool. Like they'll be like they have it's a very solid level of localism. I feel like they're like if you're fucking up, they'll tell you, but if you're not, they'll welcome you in, and it's like and the waves are just like hardcore and heavy, and like it breeds that kind of person. Like I don't know if you spent much time in Ireland, but I do think that there's some similarities to the culture of San Francisco surfing and Irish surfing. Like just hardcore, but also like really solid humans.
Totally. Like if you put your time in, they'll accept anyone here. And I like that about it. And I actually the first time I really surfed up here was when I was on the surf team at UC Santa Barbara. There were a couple of friends who lived up here. And I said I had never surfed up here, even though my dad lived up here since I was 7. They were like, "Oh, bring your wetsuit next time." So first they made me surf at Ocean Beach and it was terrible and windy and big and we just got our asses kicked. And then we went over to Fort Point at low tide and they made me like try different levels of dim sum on the way. So we had like the lowest quality dim sum to the medium and then ended up with the best after Fort Point. But when we got to Fort Point, we saw it was breaking. And then they were like, "All right, we're going to paddle out. Watch what we do. We're going to jump off the rocks, paddle out, but you can't paddle with us. So you come out 20 minutes later and pretend like you don't know us." And I was like, "Fuck that. I am not doing that. I'm respectful. I have good etiquette. I'm a good surfer. I'm a girl, and I'm coming with you guys." And so I paddled out with them, and like immediately the most hardcore local, this guy, Billy Canal, he was like the regulator. He was like, "Sweetheart, if anyone ever gives you a hard time in these neck of the woods, you tell him to talk to Uncle Bill." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm in." So, but
Uh,
yeah, it was pretty intimidating, but Santa Cruz always felt more intimidating to me than San Francisco
yeah, well,
as far as culture
we got
goes.
the meth down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some erratic behavior in that neck of
Mhm.
the woods. Oh, and then when was it that you really was there a moment for you when you really decided to go all in on big wave surfing?
Yeah, I mean, well, so yeah, actually, I had a near death experience at Ocean Beach during college. I was visiting a friend at UC Santa Cruz. We woke up really early, first swell of the season in November. We're checking all the spots. It was like crowded, 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 crowded. And so we kept driving north, ended up at Ocean Beach, and it was sunny offshore, and nobody was out. And all we saw were these like crazy A frame peaks, and it was barreling, and it looked just like awesome. and there was no scale because there were no other people out. And my friends, the same friends who took me to Fort Point, they said, rule number one of Ocean Beach is that it's always bigger than it looks. So that they were right. So basically we paddled out, we timed our paddle out perfectly, got out in a rip, and then I was like, wow, we haven't even had to duck dive. And then this really big whitewater came, and we were able to duck dive that one. And then the next wave was this crazy wave. We were at VFW's, and it was like the size of a house, or it felt like it was the size of a house, and it was just throwing and squaring up like 10 feet in front of my face. So I was gonna have to take the full force of the wave, and I had a comp light leash on, and I just thought, am I gonna bail my board or am I gonna duck dive? And my friend was like, "Well, see you on the other side." And I tried to duck dive it, and my board was immediately ripped out of my hands, and it was definitely the most violent beating, one of the most violent beatings I've ever had. I was getting just absolutely hammered and spinning and twisting and flipping, and I had no idea which way was up when the violence stopped. And I opened my eyes, it was all black. And then my feet touched the ground. And so I had just a very little amount of energy left, battery acid running through my legs, and I pressed off the floor. Took about 3 strokes to get to the surface, and I just thought, like, in my head, if there's another wave, I'm dead. It's just a fact. I had no space for emotions either. And there was not another wave, and I was gasping for air and tingling. All the blood was starting to recirculate through my body, and saw my friend, and he was like, "I'm going in." I was like, "Yeah, me too." And then we got to the beach, and I just stood there looking at those waves, and I was like, I want to surf those waves. I know I can do it. I've got the skills. I just need the right gear. I need to put in the training, and that's what I want to do. And that was when I doubled down on what I thought were big waves, and then later on, I realized, like, what were really big
Hmm.
waves. Yeah.
Ocean
And then later yeah.
Ocean Beach is so often dwarfed by Mavericks. It doesn't always get the credence that it deserves. Like, because it's so close to Mavericks, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, well it's not Mavericks." But then you forget, like, yeah, Mike Parsons almost died there, and like I know multiple people who talk about Ocean Beach as some of the worst beatings of their life. And it's like it's one of those waves that will throw you, but people don't really talk about it the same way that they do because Mavericks is so famous.
That's right. Yeah. Usually at this point in time, usually if Ocean Beach is that big that Mavericks is breaking, I'll usually choose Mavericks because it's actually easier than Ocean Beach. There's a channel, I can paddle out, and just it's as I get older, like, the odds of me getting one of my best waves at Ocean Beach at this point are low. Whereas, like, I can go out to Mavericks, surf for 3 hours, catch a bunch of waves if it's breaking, have a great time, and I'm not just gonna spend 3 hours paddling, you know, which is Ocean Beach. You're like on a marathon paddle all the time.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel a kind of externalization of the experience of surfing big waves, given how much media is always around that aspect of surfing? Like, and what I mean by that is, like, if you are just going out for a regular day of surfing, like there's not a lot of cameras around. It's not something that's going to make you famous. But like again, Mavericks is so famous. It's this wave where it's like it becomes a media event every time it's good. And if you're making a career in surfing, like, it really matters to get a good one out there. Have you, as you've kind of risen through the ranks as one of the top female big wave surfers in the world, felt that kind of pressure externally as you're surfing big waves? And how, if so, how do you deal with it?
Um, I yes and no. The nice thing about being one of the only females is that it means that the cameras usually will catch my waves, you know? So, but also a lot of times miss it. But I think where I've come to is just always making sure that I'm doing it for the love, and that I think the pressure that I felt when I was first starting to paddle out at Mavericks a lot was that I just wanted to catch a wave so badly to prove to myself that I could do it and to prove that to myself that I belonged in that lineup. And it was so intimidating paddling out with a lineup full of legends and just finding my space out there. And people always are nice. They want to chat it up, especially when there's a woman and, a bunch of men out. And so I kind of started tapping into that. Was like I started going to a sports psychologist and being like, hey, I'm having these experiences where I'm going out into the lineup and I will just feel so devastated and unfulfilled after a session if I don't catch any waves. And then not knowing when my next opportunity would come was like really emotionally challenging. And so we came up with this spirit, power animal process where it was
I
like,
love
okay,
this.
when
I
I'm
love this
paddling
already.
out,
I love this already. I don't know where it's
yes.
going, but I'm in.
So, like, when I'm paddling out into the lineup, I'm tapping into something different from myself. I'm dissociating from Bianca, who is like the nice person who chats it up and like I'm very outgoing and extroverted, but I'm tapping into the killer bee where it's like, hey, I'm not going to kill you, Kyle, but don't mess with me because I can. If I, so just like putting out this like aura of like, hey, I'm here to focus, don't fuck with me, and that really helped. And then there were moments as time evolved where we would be working on big shoots and like the pressure was on, and I'm kind of one of those people um who likes a little pressure put on me, but also I've never had the problem of being a completely paid professional athlete who has those requirements in my contract. So I think that those athletes probably feel a little more of what you called externalization, I would guess. But I think that if you're looking at longevity and you want to do this forever, which I know I do, that the most powerful thing you can do is do it for the love.
Right. How did you come to the killer bee?
Just because everybody calls me B.
Okay, I like
Yeah.
it. I like it.
Yeah, and then I came up with others, like, at Jaws, I came up with the Bull Kitty because, it's really easy to get bounced off your board at Jaws, so I was like, "Okay, I'm strong like a bull, like, you can't knock me off my board, but I'm nimble like a kitty."
Sick.
So it's a combo animal, and then Paige, I was like asked my friend Paige Alms, like, "Hey, what's your power animal?" And she was like, "Dolphin eagle." "Oh, if you can do combos, dolphin eagle." I don't know, what's yours? Do
Oof,
you have one?
the dolphin eagle. No, I think I'm just the kitty kitty. I
That's
gotta think of mine. I gotta think of mine. Um, yeah, people at Burning Man were calling me Simba. That was someone gave me that playa name, so
Oh,
maybe there's something of like the
that's
lion
nice.
cub. I like the idea though of I was talking to this guy Jim Fadiman once. He's like one of the foremost researchers on psychedelic microdosing. He wrote a book called The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide, and then he wrote another one called Our Symphony of Selves. And the basic premise of that is that what you see as Bianca yourself is not actually a unified person, but this symphony of selves that can all come out at different times. And much of success in life is dependent on bringing out the right part of yourself at the right time. So if you're out surfing big waves, bringing your nicest, most considerate self out is probably not the self to bring out. Maybe if it's a Monday and you're working on business, like that is the right self to bring out, but it's a mismatch for that moment in time. So to actually n- visualize an animal or have there be like some form of a visualization to bring out that self in a specific time, I could see as being really effective.
Yeah, that's a really cool insight. Thanks for sharing that. I think that especially women, we just do have this big people pleasing side. So I think you're right. Like finding a way to tap into the right self for the big wave lineup where you're in a pack of what feels like hungry lions and you might be the only lioness out there. So like what are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? Like if you want a wave, nobody's going to hand it to you. You got to step up to the plate and take what you want.
Right. Do you use visualization, and was there anything else that you learned from the sports psychologist when you were working with him or her?
Definitely, yeah. No, visualization is such a powerful tool to get the reps in, especially with something like big wave surfing, where you literally don't know when the next opportunity will come to actually do the thing that you want to do. And so, I practice visualization all the time. I've also had so many, different injuries that have kept me out of the water that I've found that that's a great way to get the reps in and practice. And then inevitably, that's what's so cool about surfing is like your visualization is you might be visualizing and imagining these waves and these conditions. And then the swell comes at the spot, whether it's Mavericks or Jaws or Puerto, and you're out there and you're like, this is not what I was imagining, but okay, let's go.
Mm, mm.
you
Um,
know?
when was and so tell me more about this sports psychologist that you worked with. Like, how did those sessions go?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's not too different from talk therapy. It was more like, a 50-minute session and we would just focus on performance and talk about the different ways that athletes can optimize. And like, I think the my earlier self did harbor a lot of frustration and anger, and like I'm a big Scorpio, and so I have a lot of those characteristics. And so I think it was just like being validated that it's okay, like, so, it's okay to take anger into the water. And I've since transitioned into that most recent of like, hey, if it's most powerful if I am doing this for the love, right? Like frustration and rage can be really powerful fuels for a lot of athletes too. Um and it can feel good when you're angry and you're pissed to go out in the water and just like rip a wave apart, and you can surprise yourself with rage in the water.
Oh yeah, it's if you're
Uh,
angry, you're not falling.
yeah,
Like,
so
if you want to stick an airdrop, get pissed off. He's like, ah,
yeah, so
God damn it, LeBron.
but that kind of energy I don't think is one and that lasts a life can last forever. So I definitely think that going out and doing it for the love and really knowing your reasons why and having your intentions is where I'm at now. But like, yeah, the sports psychology was really a game changer for me. And sometimes he was a surfer too, and he would take me surfing. And I know he's still
What was
practicing.
his
His
name?
name's Manav. His name is Manav. I can't think of his last name right now, but I can send a link for your show notes. And what's really cool is that I'm noticing like all the youngsters on the WSL and a lot of people who I know on the qualifying series now, like a lot of teenagers, becoming much, much more available and much more common. And so I think it's really great because I do think if you have that drive and that motivation to either surf big waves or to be a professional athlete, that you probably are a big feeler and a deep feeler and have big feelings. So like some kind of therapy is a good idea.
For sure. I mean,
Yeah.
this is also a reason why, like, it seems that addiction is also abnormally correlated with big wave surfers, right? And addiction is like, it's what is like addiction is not the problem. Addiction is the attempt to solve the problem. Like Gabor Mate quote. Like, I do think that for sure, if you're gonna get into any form of extreme sport, it is on some level an effort to match an extreme feeling within yourself.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think also if you're a big feeler or deep feeler that you might want to escape or avoid those feelings, and one way that you can do it is through your sport, or it can be through substances or whatever, partying. So I see the correlation there too, definitely.
I love that you take your athleticism so seriously, and by that I mean like I've yes, my mom, like she's like, if most parents probably would have put you on some kind of like Ritalin when you were a kid because you just couldn't stop moving. Like my whole life, I've just been incredibly active. If I don't work out, like really for a day, I can't sleep at night. Um, like I've just always had an incredible amount of energy, and yet there's some part of me that is always not really considering myself an athlete. Like there's some part of me that's like, yeah, but like John Florence is like a real athlete. Like I'm not like a real athlete, you know. I'm not like a oh yeah, like I surf big waves, but then there's like, fucking Kai Lenny. He's like a real, So I'm always, it's a bad habit that I think I've gotten better at, and I'm trying to continue to get better at, which is to not just cut myself down for something that's just like kind of true and inherent to me, which is that like I am an athlete. That's always been true for me, and like to take that seriously and own that part of myself. Like I really respect and think it's cool that you have owned that part of yourself and have, after that recognition, like worked to optimize it, right? Like, okay, well, this is who I am. How do I make it as how do I honor this part of myself and try and tweak the knobs to make it as like good as I can make it, right? And I think it's something that like so much of just growing up is to figure out who you are, and then the rest of life is to figure out, okay, well, how can I create a life that works for this person that was kind of given to me. Like there's a certain amount that we can change about ourselves, but there's also a lot that we just can't. And to figure out how to work with that, like determines whether or not it's going to be a happy life. So it's a long way of saying, like, I think it's great that you are kind of twisting these knobs of yourself to figure out how far you can really go with this, because it's a part of you.
Yeah, well, and also I think you are definitely a real athlete. You just ran an ultra marathon at Burning Man in 9-minute pace. That's insane. I could never do that, nor would I have the desire. But I think it's so awesome that you did.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fun.
Um,
It also honestly, that has felt like, I haven't really talked about it on this podcast yet, but it felt significant. Like it felt more significant than any ayahuasca ceremony I've ever done. Done a dozen or so of those. Any heroic mushroom trip, like big psychedelic experiences. People talk about changing some part of you, and yeah, I've benefited from those, but honestly, not as much as I've benefited from doing this ultra. Like
yeah, that's
it felt,
ultra's way harder.
well. It just it's similar in that, like, there's a point towards the end of that where, like, I was in a completely altered state, like a completely, like, you're looking at the horizon and you're far away from your body, and you just have this really quiet conversation with yourself to keep going, and it's just keep relaxing your legs, and your hamstrings are like, every little bit of your hamstring wants to tense up and cramp, and you just need to like keep every part of your body as relaxed as possible, and then keep at that pace. And like, yeah, when I finished it, there was a form of durable confidence that was like felt significant. It felt like, oh yeah, wow, I can do that. I'm gonna bring that evidence that I can pull something like that off into the rest of my life. Which is kind of like what so much of these experiences are all about, right? They're just evidence that you can go do that again, or you can do it in another aspect of your life. Which is why, like, I want to talk more about the athletic training that you're doing, this longevity training, because on the face of it, like, yeah, okay, it's for athletes, but I'm a big believer that like there's no barrier really between your body and your brain, and like there is a direct correlation between your athletic pursuits and your intellectual successes or your business successes. Like you can transfer many of those skills.
Yeah, but real quick, curious, what was your mindset when your hamstrings were seizing up and you were seeing that horizon just being so far away during your ultra?
Uh it well it like I think that there was a point where I was really high on endorphins, and I was like, wow, this feels like a spiritual experience, and it's so not about like the winning of it, or which I didn't win it, but like I very much crushed my personal goal. And then there was this point where all that faded, and it was like, whoa, this is so hard and this is so painful right now. I don't give a fuck. Like I will fucking eat you right now. Like there was just like a level of like I like fuck you. Like it was a lot of fuck you energy. Like
Okay.
and that just kept like but like but from like a place that feels really good, where you just like I do not give a fuck. I am not stopping right now. And that like to just tap into that voice again and again it was cool. It's cool. You don't get that chance to do that all the time.
Yeah. No, that is cool that you kind of went to the red zone and then you were like, hell no. You used the anger and the rage,
Totally.
kind of, it sounds like.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Um,
that's but it's not it's not like a it's not like petty anger, right? It's like
no, no, no,
yeah.
no. But I think if you were to be like, oh, I want to do more ultra marathons for the rest of my life, that kind of anger and that self talk is not going to work every single time.
No, I feel like it's like you need the right color paint for the right like wall or so it's like
Yeah,
you
that could be
go
true.
through these highs and lows on any one experience of a hard physical event and like I felt that too just on like whether it be a big wave sesh, right? Like sometimes you're stoked, you're riding the high, it feels really good, and then sometimes you've fallen on a few waves and you need to bring out a more aggressive energy. And that can also really work. So like I don't think it's as simple as just there's one mindset or mood that works for that. Like I try and be, as positive as I can because I think that generally speaking, the happier I am, the better things go. But then there's also a level of just refusing to quit. Like just refusing that it can also be very valuable at a certain moment.
Yeah, so you're learning to meet yourself where you're at depending on the any given scenario and what you're doing on that day, it sounds like.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's just simple like sentences that I would tell myself, and it's the same sentences that I use if I'm getting worked on a big one, which is like, you got this, you can do
Okay,
this, you got
nice.
this,
Yeah,
you
so
got
you're
this, you
cheering
can do it.
yourself on.
Yeah, I'm cheering myself on. There's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
like the place I don't let myself go is like, oh, you shouldn't be here. You're not meant for
right.
this. Like, this is such a mistake. Like, I just don't, you just need to have those positive sentences like at the ready to then flip to that good mindset. Like, and then whether or not it's like, you got this, and it's coming from a more angry voice or a more happy voice, like, you're still using those sentences to yourself. And I also trained for like, 9 months leading up to it. And like I running's fucking boring. Like it's
Yeah,
compared to surfing, it's such a boring
and it
sport.
hurts.
It hurts, it's boring, like it's not cool. It's like all
But
these
so many
things that I
people
like,
do it.
so many people do it, but it does leave you with a conversation in yourself that you need to like start cultivating again and again. I think that that's the meditative practice of it that you don't necessarily get from other sports that are more fast paced.
Yeah, you can do hard things.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, the longevity coaching started with a guy named Lionel. During COVID, I was surfing at the north end of Ocean Beach here at Kelly's Cove, and this guy chased me down the beach and was like, "Hey, are you Bianca? Oh, I recognize your board spray. I'm on the board of Surf Canada with your friend Paige." I was like, "Oh, cool, great to meet you." And then he started sending me Instagram messages like all the time saying, "Hey, I got this crazy idea. I got this crazy idea." He was stopping by my restaurant, leaving me notes like, "Hey, give me a call. I got this idea." And I was like, "Who is this guy and what does he want?" And and so I messaged him back and I was like, "What's your idea?" And he's like, "No, no, no. Can we meet in person?" And I was like, "Sure." I just sometimes I get the feeling like, okay, this could be a cool internet friend. And most of the time I don't, but and so I met up with him and his story was like he started surfing when he was 53. He loved sports. Surfing had quickly became his favorite sport. And he was 59 at the time and he had this dream of surfing Mavericks and wanted to know if I thought it was possible and if I would be willing to coach him. And I was like, I had to think about it, because I was like, there were a lot of different voices in my
You're like,
head.
you're like,
and
with enough money, anything is possible.
no, but that was it. It's like I have always been someone who has never done anything for the money. And hence why I pursued big wave surfing. And I'm like, okay, now I might actually want to try to make some money so I can take care of myself into my 40s. but um, but no, his reasons why were authentic, and I liked him. And so I was like, it was during COVID, and I was like, let's try, let's give it a try. And I made him a program, and the first time we went surfing together, I was like, I don't know if this is going to be possible. Um, and neither one of us did. But I put him through the ringer. He did every single safety course you could imagine: the Mavericks Surf Safety Summit, the Bragg training, Mark Healy's training. We had free diving lessons, multiple free diving lessons, and apnea. And I made him come on an open ocean 9-mile paddle with me just to prove that he could paddle out at Mavericks. And so basically we got to the point where we knew if he wiped out, he'd be able to handle it. And the night before, like 10 months went on, and there was kind of like this perfect swell that I saw that was just a last minute swell. Um and I called him and I FaceTimed him, and he usually answers right away. And or I texted him, so I was calling him, FaceTiming and texting him, and I saw that there was just going to be this perfect little window where it was going to be glassy and just big enough for Mavericks to break, which that's still a 15-foot, 20-foot face. And he finally called me back, and I was like, "Are you at a party right now?" And he's like, "I'm at a business dinner. What's up?" I'm like, "No, no, no. You need to go home right now. Go to sleep. Tomorrow's your day." And he said he thought I jinxed him in that moment, but I was like, "It's not going to be an early morning thing. It's going to start breaking at about 10. It's going to break till 2, and that's our window," which is hard for him because he was always like a 6 a.m. guy. And so we went down, and he paddled for the first 2 waves, and kind of just like anybody naturally does, paddled towards the channel. And I was like, "No, you got to square up with the wave." And I was like, "Come sit right next to me." And there's only 4 other legends out that day. And I was like, "Sit next to me. This is your wave." And he's like, "This one?" I was like, "Yeah." And he starts paddling. I was like, "Go more left." And then he squares up with the wave, and then I don't see him. And that was the first time in the whole process where I was like, if this guy dies, his wife and kids are gonna kill me. But 45 seconds later, he kicked out in the channel with his hands up, and we were like, everybody out in the lineup was like, "Fuck yeah!" It was just so inspiring. And so throughout the process, like I updated his gear, I updated his training techniques, mindset, everything, because we couldn't think about it as like a 18-year-old or a 20-year-old who can just keep pounding and doing hard work. We had to work smarter, and we had to be more efficient, and be really, really intentional with how we worked. And so I took really close notes throughout that process, and I applied everything I taught him to myself. And then I've keep getting better and better waves, and I've won more trophies than I can count since then. And so I was like, wait a minute, there's something here. And there's all of these surfers who start later in life, and it's such a hard sport to learn. And so I put together a whole program on surf longevity to help people with their habits, their mindset, their training, and their technique.
Cool. Okay, I love this. Is it like is there a beginning and an end to the course? Is it all in person? How does this work?
Yeah, so no, it's online, and there is a beginning, and theoretically there's no end. I'm going to help you create your system depending on, we're all a little different. Luckily I've had shoulder injuries, knee injuries, hip injuries, and so I do have a repertoire of surf specific exercises and programming that I can help anybody with. But I mean, the end is really up to you, right? It's like, hopefully you take the course and you apply it to your life, and you continue to surf till you're 100 or surf forever, and you keep loving it more and more, and you keep getting better.
Mm. What has been the biggest step up in your adult surfing career? So you mentioned that once you started doing this, you started winning more trophies than you could count. Like, was there has there been a specific moment where you felt like you made it to another level because of something that you did?
There's been so many moments like that. I think most in the last 5 years it's been just toe surfing because I never toe surfed before since 5 years ago. And when you first start toe surfing, it's really fast paced and it's a totally different sport from paddle surfing. And just learning how to drive. Actually, I found like being the driver and having a partner is really, really rewarding when you put your partner on a good wave and when you rescue your partner from a crazy situation. And then, I caught and wiped out on one of the biggest, craziest waves ever at Mavericks 2 years ago with Jeff Kafka as my partner. And I handled that wipeout like a champion. And that was a next level for me. I was like, wow, I felt amazing. Mentally, I was good. And I don't know, you probably saw that
Was that a
wave.
two-wave hold down?
No, that was not a two-wave hold down, but it was on December 28th, 2023. And the waves were probably like 60 feet tall by 60 feet wide. And the night before was a storm. So there was a localized south wind swell. So basically, that means that there were these 60-foot waves coming through, and they had like 6-foot ramps coming from the other direction. So the waves are coming from the north and the west, the ramps are coming from the south. So when you let go of the rope, you would have to navigate those ramps on the ride. And I caught like 5 waves with Jeff, 4 waves, made them all. And then I was like, all right, let's get a big one. And he put me on this big one, and it was the biggest tow wave I've ever caught. And I am going Mach 10 speed. And as I come down this bump, I hit a bump and I kind of like ended up on my heels a little bit. Like I should have been more on rail and had a wider, lower stance. But basically I hit a bump and I had a shockwave go up through my body. And if you get a shockwave while you're riding, you really want to absorb it in your ankles, your knees, or your hips. If you extend it, your odds of making the wave are like exponentially less. So I extended, I ended up falling back on my heels. This wave came down on me. I got sent straight down, and I was like, I pulled both of I pulled my air vest on both sides right at that moment, and I was like, okay, here we go, just relax, you've got this. And I got sent straight down and I felt fine. My ears got really, really pressurized really fast. I went so deep, I think I probably went 60 feet deep. And I thought, like, should I release my ears? Should I depressurize my ears? And then I was like, nah, that's too much energy right now. I'm just gonna stay as is, like with my head covered. Finally, the wave releases me, and so I'm just come floating up to the surface with my left hand in the air, thinking like, "Oh, my partner's gonna be right there and pick me up." And I'm facing the cliff, and I'm like, "Look left, look right," and then turn around, and there's the next gigantic wave so now I'm at the surface with an inflated vest, and that wave hits me right away. And that one took a little more energy out of me, so I added my self-talk in those moments is, "I love this, I live for this," because those feel energizing to me. And then I added one more thought, which was my dog, Chi-Chi. I was like, "Chi-Chi." Like, that's just a nice thought. And then I came up from that one, and I was pretty exhausted by that point, but good. And then Drake, one of the safety guys at Mavericks, was there, and I got on his sled, and the next huge wave is right there, and he gunned it because he had to. And I just didn't have the energy at that point, like after taking all those million bazillion pounds of water on the head, and I fell off the sled. So I took the third one on the head, and then I came up, and I was right next to the rocks at that point, and Rafael was there, the guy Tapia from Chile, and he grabbed me. I got on his sled and we skirted out of there. But that day, and then he handed me the radio, and I was like, I'm good because everybody they had shut down when there's a wipeout like that in a spot like that and the waves are that big. Everybody stops surfing and it's like all hands on deck. we all act together as a family, and we're looking out for that person who went down, and so there's no rioting happening during that moment. And that was also another nice moment of like just feeling like that oneness and part of the community as another level, because you were asking about like a next level, and like felt like I love this community and they love me too in that moment, and so I was like, that's really nice. And then we spent an hour looking for my board, couldn't find the board, get a radio call later. I was like, I'm done, I'm good. That was a crazy wipeout. I don't need to do that again. And then we got a call from the harbor, like the board had shot up over the jetty pilings, and somebody found it in the harbor. And the crazy part was it didn't even have a scratch on it. And I was good. Like, I was like, wow, I can handle that. So that sometimes those wipeouts, you always, if you are wiping out, like, if you're pushing levels, you're going to wipe out. And the better you can handle out your wipeouts, that's like a pretty good sign that you're evolving and getting better at your sport.
I love this. I live for this. That is a
Yeah.
that is a sick statement. Wow, that was a great story. That was a great
Thanks.
story. Bianca, I feel like that might be a good place to end for us. Is there anything else that you were excited to say that we didn't get to in this conversation?
Well, I think I'm happy with this conversation. I would love to come back on again, and sorry it's taken so long, and thank you so much for having me.
Anytime.
And
You got
you
an open
are a
seat.
real athlete.
Oh, you stop it. I appreciate that. You're a great storyteller. You rocked it.
Thanks.
Yes, I was right there
Thanks.
with you. I was holding my breath the whole time you told that story.
Oh God.
And where can people find you? What's the best place for them to get in touch with you and potentially get some coaching if they dare?
Yeah, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Big Wave Bianca at Big Wave Bianca, or you can go to betterwave.org and you'll find out about our programs there.
Bianca, I'm such a fan. Thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Likewise.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.